I think the opportunities as well as the risks of AI are tremendous across all industries. So I think today the highest potential for AI to play a role would be both in the front office and in the back office functions. This classic technology versus jobs debate has been going on for a long time across different time zones. Create a unusual leadership structure to be able to think this through and do for you. It has to be somebody with a strong technology background. It has to be somebody who is able to, or some from a past track record, who can visualize things that don't currently exist.
Hi, and welcome to the Digital Unplugged podcast series. Today's topic is how do you survive and thrive in AI? And I have with me a very special guest and a personal friend, Rostow. Welcome, Rostow. Thank you so much for making time to join us in this podcast. Rostow, as many of you know, is the ex-CEO of Mindtree and presently the founder of Alpha Hive, and I wouldn't do justice to his introduction. So, Rostow, can you please share with us your journey and how you moved in from corporate to founding, and how has the scene been for you?
Thank you, Kalpana. Lovely to be here and to be part of this podcast. In my life was a series of happy accidents. I think the only conscious move I made was my first job, which was in consulting. But since then, everything else came as a result of happy coincidences from KPMG to Lucent, Lucent to Mindtree, and now Mindtree to Alpha Hive. My point, therefore, is that there are so many things you can plan in life, but leave some space for other parts of destiny to also take you in the direction that you're supposed to take there. Don't script every last sentence and word of your life. Leave some room for fortune to play its role as well.
That's okay. And dare I say, fortune has played a great role from probably time to time in what you've been doing. And I know it's not an easy. What are some of your learnings from moving from a very large corporate kind of construct to maybe something which is a startup where you're hustling, bustling, and you're actually looking at various things getting worked out in parallel, right? In a corporate, obviously, is much more, let's say, at least organized, or one would expect it to be. So how has the journey been and the shift between, let's say, a corporate and startup?
I think on balance, the majority has been like enormously positive. I think the biggest difference is that I have very low friction in my day-to-day work. Whereas if you are in a large organization, for example, there is a lot of friction, like you have to deal with, say, investors, analysts, and so on and so forth there. Non-value added parts of your job are quite high if you're part of a large organization. But because you're large, those things need to be done, so you do it there. So now in a startup world, it's, I would say, much more liberating, much more creative. All the fights we have in the team are, should this page background be white or green? Should that button be yellow or blue, etc.? As your creative kind of spirits get unleashed more, all your work is a lot more productive, a lot less friction there. The one difference, unfortunately or fortunately, is the fact that you have far lesser resources. If you are part of a large organization, you just have to wish it and tell it to somebody, and it gets taken care of for you. Big things, small things, etc., can get accomplished because you have more resources, you have a structure, you have a team, etc. Whereas here, like I joked, the software doesn't work. All that has to be done only by you and your team around you there. So everybody ends up having to become more hands-on because of that. But all said and done, I wouldn't trade this startup experience back to a large corporation anytime soon. I'm having too much fun.
Now, moving into your view in terms of where do you see, from a landscape perspective, what do you think will be the intervention of AI? I ask you this because you have seen, let's say, a services company in India, grow enormously during, the boom times, as we call it. And presently, in the startup boom time, you're actually in the startup phase. So where do you see organizations getting impacted by AI, and what would your view be from a services perspective from an Indian context?
I think the opportunities as well as the risks of AI are tremendous across all industries, whether it is say media or hospitality or consumer products or travel, manufacturing, across all industries. There's a tremendous opportunity if you get your AI strategy right. And there are also tremendous risks if you don't get your AI strategy right. So therefore, it pervades all industries. Secondly, if you were to take a classic organizational breakdown, there are a certain set of front office functions, there are a certain set of middle office functions, and there are a set of back office functions that any organization would have. I think today the highest potential for AI to play a role would be both in the front office and in the back office functions. In the back office function, for example, there's a lot that can be done to automate, improve, make processes more efficient, stuff like that on the back office side. But on the front office side, especially around understanding customer sentiment, treating each customer as a customer of one, because you can, exactly anticipate and, offer like a very tailored set of products or services to that customer. Things like that, which would have probably not been possible historically, are now becoming possible because of AI. And I think sooner or later, AI will start playing a role in the middle office functions as well.
From a front office perspective, because you've been in services, and there is so much of flutter about how perhaps the landscape of coding is going to change. Maybe the services sector is entering into a doom. Do you really think it's a doomsday written all over, or what are some of the things that maybe a services segment should be careful about? Because many of our audience may also be people who are working in the service segment, and from a probable, let's look at growth in the segment till now. Do you feel that there will be a change in tide that will probably take shape in the future, in the near future, just on services?
That's the classic technology versus jobs debate has been going on for a long time across different time zones, across various eras, right? If I were to take a light-hearted example, the construction industry saw significant change. I remember when we were in our younger days, construction would require people carrying stones on their head and walking up hills, etc., to be able to place the stone and do. A lot of the construction activity was manual. Today, a lot of that is automated. You have very specialized equipment, cutting, polishing, digging, etc., in the construction industry. That does not mean labor in the construction industry at an aggregate level has fallen. It just means that there's much more construction happening far faster with a higher quality across the globe there. So in the, what shall I say, race between technology and jobs, it's been a mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. More technology enables more activity, safer activity, more healthier kind of workplaces, etc. with technology. If you were to take manufacturing with robotics or construction with automation, etc. So I predict the same thing will happen by and large in the IT services kind of industry with technologies like AI. It will, for example, reduce some types of activity. Maybe, right, for example, testing could get driven by more AI kind of test cases being run compared to sort of the current world where a lot of testing is done manually. But some aspects would become much more enhanced. There'll be an ability to train people to work smarter, because in every job across every organization, there are routine aspects and there are creative aspects. Technology will play a part in reducing the routine aspects, enabling the people to deliver more on the creative aspect at one level. Secondly, because technology makes it more affordable, easier to develop, easier to deploy, etc., clients or services companies will want more things to be done. And today, for example, sometimes when clients want a lot of things to be done, the lack of qualified manpower, the lack of processes, etc., holds back the services company from generating full potential of that demand. And now when many of those, bottlenecks get removed, there'll be like a, reasonably good growth opportunity for the services companies out of this, right? However, all of that comes with a rider. You need leadership teams who are able to envisage this future correctly, make the right investments in tools, processes, training, and so on and so forth to be able to capture the demand. Because there are times when rising tides lift all boats, and there are times when the tide backs out. Pressure on management teams to make the right calls, make the right investments, will be much higher. So while it will be a net positive, it may not be a net positive for everybody. There may be winners and there may be losers because of this trend.
So when you look at maybe, okay, what should a management team do differently in a large org versus maybe a startup, because both are going to ride the tide. What could be one or two hacks for a large versus a small organization or a startup, right? Because you've been in both. So if you look at an intervention like AI, where it offers, let's say, at an infra level, at a product level, at probably platform and utilization, utilities, there are opportunities. And maybe there are threads running across, maybe from an IP perspective, what can be done, training machines faster, doing different sets of, maybe tasks from a point of view of, let's say, when following transparency in AI and stuff like that, right? So, what would you say are top two things which a large organization would get right is important, and for a small organization to get right is the key part? What's your view?
I'll make one presumption before I answer your question, that a large organization will operate in multiple geographies.
Yes.
That presumption may not 100% be true, but I'm just making that presumption just to frame my answer in response to your question, because it adds a complexity for large organizations. Because by definition, many of them would be in multiple geographies. For large organizations, my prescription would be as quickly as possible, find a way to take an audit, for example, on all the data that you have. Again, it's a simplistic example. There's data on every customer coming to your website. Where are they coming from? What are they searching? How long are they on your website? And so on and so forth, right? Like across your entire value chain of your operations, take stock of all the data that you have and figure out the right way to store all the data in whatever form and fashion that you get. That I think is like a real critical first step for large organizations. The second step I would recommend for the large organization is to start like a very detailed, very meticulously planned education, awareness building, change management kind of initiative there. So that when you start doing the deployments, when you start doing the implementation, so that the people factor doesn't slow you down. Because it will involve change, it will involve people having to do things differently. It will involve some ways by which people's roles get reconfigured and so on and so forth. So in parallel to that, taking stock of data and setting up the right kind of a data warehouse where all the data is stored, start the change management, awareness building, training exercise there. Thirdly, create a unusual leadership structure. To be able to think this through and do for you. It has to be somebody with a strong technology background. It has to be somebody who is able to, some from a past track record, who can visualize things that don't currently exist. Because there are certain set of leaders who can envision a different future, and a lot of leaders who are very good to optimize and make your current status quo efficient. Somebody who's primarily with that kind of a mindset will not be able to make the best possible use and leverage technology the best there. So in a way, sort of figuratively, marry a technology person with a business leader and let that sort of like a two-in-a-box kind of an approach decide exactly how the technology is going to be leveraged, what data is going to be used, what differences are going to be made, what impact is going to be created, etc. there. So it has to be like a combination of both visionary business, but like cutting edge technology, both need to get together. So those are the recipes I would predict for large organizations. For small organizations, I would think inevitably you probably try multiple things. You will hack a lot of things along your way, etc. Now, I would say be very careful of your costs. because developing products, the amount of data that you need, storage, compute, and so on and so forth, costs can go out of control very quickly. Both people costs as well as technology and infrastructure costs there. And you think you will be able to solve the problem as you go along. But if you set things up wrongly, then the catch up will be that much more difficult for you. So make sure that you're optimizing for costs continuously, along with all the other things that you're doing in terms of go-to-market and product development and everything else there.
Okay, great. So we've touched on the organization and the different types and possibly what AI can do maybe at an organization level. Now, if you move to the next level, right? If you look at probably the people, element, because you briefly touched on it earlier to say make sure that you are engaging the people and upskilling them. This upskilling has become really a very critical word. It keeps getting dropped every now and then. So, so if you were to unravel upskilling, right, and maybe take some example of saying, okay, what can upskilling mean? Because when you look at, let's say, organizations which are very large, the CEO has a hack, or they know actually what has worked in the past. They have some data elements, they have some clarifications coming in from the market. Largely it's a combination of saying here is the value delivery, and you optimize either on cost or on making sure you get better market. For a new product CEO or somebody like that, you probably going and intervening into an existing market and what will actually deliver value from there. I don't know if the generic structure of the way our education system and our entire thinking process is. Do we naturally learn across different stages and ages in a career life cycle, or what do you think? How difficult will it be for people to upskill, and what is this upskill in AI if you were to unpackage it?
The short answer is nothing worthwhile, nothing exciting ever gets built without a lot of hard work. So therefore, even this upskilling question at an individual level, all of us have to really commit to it and put that extra amount of effort to make it happen, etc. There, because the big realization of I would say more our kids' generation, we are sort of like a transition between our parents' generation to our generation to our kids' generation, from a sort of business transformation kind of a perspective. Because our parents' generation, pretty much jobs were defined when you joined the workforce at say mid-20s, and probably till your 50s, you probably had very similar, very well-structured kind of programs, and you just followed it, and then you got your work done. We are somewhere in between. Lots of things keep changing, and the generation that follows us, things will change even faster. But the big realization is that there's an important new terminology to be aware of. There is a half-life for knowledge as well. We all know that there is a half-life for uranium, which is X number of years. There's a half-life for carbon. There's a half-life for oxygen, etc. So there's a half-life for knowledge as well. But the half-life of uranium, for example, 10 years back and today will be exactly the same. But the half-life of knowledge today is far lesser than the half-life of whatever knowledge you had 10 years back. And the half-life of the same knowledge will be even lesser next year. Individual needs to realize that he or she has to be on this treadmill. Otherwise, they will get left behind. So you can't expect organization to take the responsibility for keeping you trained. The starting point has to come from, saying, what can I do differently? What is available today in technology that could not have been done yesterday, and so on and so forth. Secondly, you don't need to wait for the L&D departments of organizations to come and give you training. There's so much you can get on your own from, say, public sources like YouTube or Coursera. And many of these kind of global learning platforms make so much knowledge available to you there. So spark the curiosity in you, start taking the first steps on your own there. And the second after that would be, how do you get teams together? Can you form maybe 3 people, 4 people in a team, and then start taking small projects? okay, I learned about this new way by which ChatGPT is doing ABCD things. How will the three, four of us who are doing one particular activity as a group leverage this technology to be able to do something there and do, like I would say, cautiously planned experiments within small groups. So those are things at which those are things which individuals can start and take some grassroots level action. That has to be married by the organization having like a longer term kind of a structured kind of a plan as well. Where is the business going? What parts of the business are susceptible to automation? What parts of the business are susceptible to disruption? What new opportunities do we focus on there? And then you marry both the top-down initiatives with the bottom-up initiatives, and somewhere along the way you'll hit the right recipe on getting both done. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, fantastic. I really enjoyed the half-life of knowledge, what you were sharing. I think, very, very relevant and very punchy there, Rostow. Thank you. So from probably moving on from maybe the people element, right? You then go to the infra element, and then, you look at cloud, and this probably is very close to you because you're also looking at a startup which is maybe serving the ambitions of people to traverse the cloud with less of fear, right? Because whenever innovation happens and somebody has to adopt something, there is always also fear that maybe something will go wrong, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to also share with us anecdotally on Alpha Hive and how maybe some of the risks which come out of AI and maybe a cloud adoption. How do you see that being, let's say, stopped? I'm using a very, colloquial term of stop. Maybe there would be relevant terminology in the cyber and the other arenas of security per se. But how do you see the opportunity versus threat of cloud, and how will products such as Alpha Hive help somebody? And is it good that then companies actually look at building an ecosystem where they can take advantage of some of the products for maybe managing the threat or conquering the opportunity?
Okay, let me start with the light-hearted comment. This is 2024. So if somebody says, should I be on cloud or not be on cloud, kind of a starting point, then they need to go take a cold water shower and then come back to the conversation there. Because I think today cloud has become mainstream. If you were to look at, say, Fortune 2000 kind of companies, sovereign governments, not-for-profits, more than, I would say, 40% of their enterprise compute and storage workload has moved to the cloud. So today, cloud has become mainstream. So there's no point in debating whether to go on cloud or whether not to go on cloud, etc. There. So I think that boat is sailed. Now you better get on it as quickly as possible. The best part about dimensions like security, etc., is that the cloud can handle it better than an individual enterprise, because the cloud providers like, say, Microsoft, AWS, and Google are all mega corporations. So the amount of money they can spend on R&D and all the right kind of processes and technology, etc., is far higher than any one enterprise will be able to do. So things like security become a lot more effective on the cloud than individual enterprises trying to do something on their own. Thirdly, if you look at all the hyperscalers, have built enormous amount of features for you to be able to get products and whatever your infrastructure up and running very, very efficiently. To the point that you were asking me, as Alpha Hive as a startup, we chose one of the public hyperscalers. Maybe about 50% of the processes or the functionality that we need to build, we just consume the services directly from this hyperscaler. So all the components of our product were not built by us. Those that are sort of public or utilities or infrastructure kind of companies, we just consume automatically. For example, we have a lot of APIs that are the way by which internal modules talk to each other, plus our software talks to our client software as well. All the cloud hyperscalers, for example, have an API manager. I don't have to build it. I don't have to buy it separately from somebody else in this example. So just consume the services that are available out of the box with these hyperscalers. Therefore, the time taken to develop the product, the time taken to test and integrate modules all fall dramatically.
Right.
The hyperscalers are also all in a very aggressive business building phase even today, even though cloud has become more than a 10-year kind of a phenomenon. For example, we got a lot of credits from the hyperscaler that we chose. And that, for example, allowed us to get going with a lot lesser cost than what it costed us if we had to do all of this on our own with our own infrastructure, etc. So the first maybe 9-10 months, we did not pay anything for our sort of infrastructure and hosting kind of cost because the amount of credits we got from the hyperscaler that we chose gave us that benefit. So from all of those kind of angles, I think going on the cloud is probably the right thing to do. The only exception could be if there are regulatory kind of challenges that prevent you from being part of multi-tenanted hosted kind of environments. Unfortunately, that still is the case in a few industries and a few geographies. In which case, obviously, you have to respect the letter and the spirit of the law, and you have to do something else. But I would say for maybe 80-90% of enterprise workloads today, the cloud is the right solution.
How would you say, maybe because one of the critical things that you told about Alpha Hive was also looking at what is my threat and how can I actually handle it. So putting it in position with, let's say, maybe an intervention like AI, which requires large compute power plus also, multiple sets of services which are potentially available with hyperscalers. Cyber is one element which potentially, maybe can be handled by Alpha Hive. What other elements do you think are risky from an organization perspective? So that then, and do you then look at it from more a cyber lens, or are there other sets of threats in AI that one should be careful about, according to you? So, for example, if say I have, a good solution like Alpha Hive, which will show me what are my threat areas and how can I handle them and reduce my impact, would that be enough to build an AI-led organization? Or is there something additional plus that somebody needs to take care of?
I think we should turn this question in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Businesses need to evaluate what business outcome they want to achieve. For example, if you are designing a house, you would not design all the bars of your windows and the height of your compound wall and all the security aspects of it first, right? You will say, I'm a 4-member family or an 8-member family or whatever. I have kids or I don't have kids. And therefore, all of those things are determined what kind of a design of a house you would have. If you, for example, have an elderly person, then you need to have a bedroom on the ground floor. And so on and so forth, right? So you have a priority of your context, and then you design the house according to that context, and then you make sure that all the appropriate security measures are built along with it. Now, maybe you live in an apartment complex, so you don't need a CCTV camera for yourself. Or maybe you live in whatever, like a house of your own, so you need a CCTV camera. So then once the house is designed, along with the other aspects, you design the sort of security aspects of it as well. So the same thing with AI as well. AI today is primarily needs to be seen as something that can make an impact to business. Can you understand a customer that you currently can't? Can you serve a customer that you currently can't? Can you serve a customer better today because of AI that you currently won't be able to serve at that price point or that speed or whatever? So use AI to achieve business priorities that you currently can or can't do or can do more efficiently. Because the underlying benefit of AI is like a very exciting technology. So use that firstly to determine what are the business priorities there. then like everything else that you would do, if you opened a new office in a new location, you would put some security measures in place, right? I mean, there would be some perimeter security, there would be a security guard, and a set of things around that. So all of those things that you do when they deploy a new technology like AI as well, understand the context and put the right amount of security around the AI models. Using cloud, not using cloud, and so on and so forth there. With the only minor additional point would be there's a completely different field around AI security. For example, all the data that you use, there is a risk that somebody could ingest wrong data. And when the AI system reads that data, draws inferences, it will come to the wrong conclusion or give you the wrong recommendation there. How do you ensure that the entire data pipeline, there is no ingestion of malified data? Or for example, within the data that you have, how do you ensure that the algorithm doesn't have biases? So there's a specific field around AI security that covers all of these kind of areas, which is a specialized form of additional intervention that you need to do there. But first, think about the business objectives you can accomplish with AI, and then let that dog wag the tail, which is security. Don't let the tail of security wag the dog.
The reason why I asked you is I feel that many of us overestimate, like Terminator. We think that, that AI is going to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger coming after us in Terminator 1. So I just thought I will ask you, because many people feel that, look, it's not all secure, anything you put there, people are going to take stuff and run away and stuff like that. But well said. Thank you so much for that lovely answer on first decide what is a value and then, figure out what you should ring fence from a risk perspective. So moving again away from an organization, right? So till now, we actually talked about, okay, what does a business model change look like? What does, people inside, how do they actually change or adapt themselves to AI? And then we looked at perhaps the infra layer and what would be some of the security aspects that you take, and how will you maybe build, buy, borrow, or how will you integrate with, let's say, different various elements available to us at present. Now, when we move that lens away from inwardly focusing on enterprise to maybe the society at large. Look, I'll be honest, I have a son who's 23 and a daughter who's 16, right? More than anything else, all of us worry about the future generation, whether of our own children or of our colleagues, and how are they actually going to survive. I get these nasty nightmares that it's going to be like maybe, nothing is actually going to happen and everything is going to be running with, let's say, AI, and these kids will just be sitting at home and possibly looking at either a phone or a machine or a screen, right? Because they would maybe, order in food, or maybe they will just experience gastronomy rather than actually eat, maybe, visit places without going there, live longer, not earn anything. I don't know whether we'll go to universal basic income or what will be the sense over there. So what is your view on societal construct and AI? Is it going to be my nightmare come true, or all is not that bad?
I am incredibly hopeful, but for a completely different reason. My kids, as it happens, are a very similar age compared to the kids that compared to your kids, and just looking at their, what shall I say, passion, their energy, their enthusiasm, their empathy, their intelligence in every possible way, I am 120% confident that our children will outshine us, whether it's professional accomplishments, financial accomplishments, etc. In many ways, they probably will also be kinder to the planet than our generation has been. We unfortunately are leaving a worse planet to our children than what our parents had left us there. So for all of those reasons, I'm incredibly hopeful that our kids will have a much more, what shall I say, enriching future for them, for themselves. Many of the problems that you outlined are quite likely to happen. It will require the leaders of our generation to be very mindful about it. Even if you look at the world of politics, there's a huge spectrum of leaders, right? There's a bunch of left-leaning leaders, there are a bunch of centrist leaders, there's a bunch of right-leaning leaders as well. That's happened in history over what should I say, decades and many centuries. But the world finds its balance. So I think the future generation, with the right principled leaders of today's generation, I'm sure will find answers to all of those problems, because the alternative, which is unthinkable, right? That you're pushing there. The scenario that you have outlined is probably unlikely, because you can't sit at home and expect food to come. There is still economic activity required. I mean, from time immemorial, there's been this thing where there is no free lunch. You have to contribute something to the society in terms of skills. Even a nurse, for example, has to look after a patient, and that's a contribution of the economic activity by a nurse. A teacher has to teach, a gardener has to come and tend to your gardens, a plumber has to come and attend to your plumbing, a CEO has to do whatever a CEO does for the corporation. So across all of us, we will have to contribute to economic activity, and we will get the rewards for it. So that's my first level answer to the question. Secondly, our parents have the same worry about us. Our grandparents have the same worry about our parents, etc. Because the world is continuously changing. If you were to again go back to history, there was a time when the pictures of New York City, which you will find on the internet, where all the streets were pulled, were filled with horse-drawn carriages, right? And today there's not a single horse-drawn carriage in New York City, other than the few that run around Central Park, just as a sort of a vintage throwback kind of experience to people there. But that does not mean transportation is fallen. So therefore, change is inevitable. And humanity has continuously found ways to assimilate change and still thrive. If you look at all objective parameters, our generation is better than our parent generation. As life expectancy, whether it is professional accomplishments, opportunities, and so on and so forth. So our kids' future will be equally bright, but more than anything else, their passion, their empathy, their intelligence will make sure that they draw the right future that they desire for themselves.
Right. And you're saying that possibly they would work maybe alongside or with a machine or with AI, but not be, let's say, outdone by it.
A whole range of activities need to be performed. I mean, let's keep in mind that all forms of human endeavor have a spectrum, right? Now, there's a difference in the economic value added. For example, a plumber's salary will be lesser than a neurosurgeon salary, or earnings of a plumber would be lesser than the earnings of a neurosurgeon, simply because the economic value between these two ends of the spectrum are different. But similarly, other future generations will pick the parts of that value system that they would like to operate in, and therefore, they will thrive in whatever they pick up and they deliver. It will not be a one-size-fits-all. It has not been a one-size-fits-all ever since we left the caves and became urban agglomerations. So it will not be a one-size-fits-all in the future as well.
Okay, and maybe we'll now move into perhaps asking some of these questions from a perspective of maybe ethics.
Okay.
Because ethics is a big thing in AI, because people say that, look, let's take even maybe some of the furore that is going on, let's say with OpenAI or generative AI, saying, look, I can actually talk like somebody else, I can sing like somebody else, I can write like somebody else. So in your view, what is ethics in AI, and how can someone make sure, if they are running an organization and they have an ambition to become an AI-led organization, big or small, whichever be the case, what are some of the ethics guardrails that you feel that will come into play, and perhaps already in play? There are various sets of standards that are there, which are already existing. But what is your view on ethics in AI?
So it's a very important and a very specialized field within AI called responsible AI, addressing all the kind of aspects that you said there. starting from the fact that all of AI is generating insights and giving you decision support, etc., using data, and data inherently historically has biases because human society has had biases all this while. So when you take your existing data, so there needs to be a lot of effort to ensuring that the models run on it in a responsible fashion. So many different aspects of responsibility come with the deployment of AI. And that, like I said, it's like a huge subject by itself there. What organizations can do, first of all, is to be aware of it. And this kind of guardrails is, for example, somebody like a chief ethics officer or somebody who's, continuously, evaluating these models and ensuring that the answers that come, come correctly, etc. are there. So they put those structures and processes in place, people in place to do all of that. But I think all of that will still only solve maybe less than half the problem. The biggest chunk of the solution for this problem will come from responsible leadership. Because if you were to go back to history, look at, for example, some of the largest accounting scandals, like say Enron, did not happen because accounting standards were inefficient or whatever, right? And because leadership was, had malified intentions. So leaders of today, whether it is in corporations, whether it is in government, all forms of leaders who are responsible for ensuring the right, deployment of AI. Leaders have to have a personal ethics, personal value systems to be able to ensure that organizations and teams work within the guidelines that are set, work within what's important social constructs for morality, social expectations of ethics, etc. So if this fails, it will be a failure of leadership. So the burden is partly on AI being responsible, but largely on leaders being responsible to ensure that they do this correctly.
Okay, great. So Rostow, I think overall we've covered, a variety of topics that actually make that entire, let's say, approach to adopting AI and surviving and thriving in an AI world. Now, I'd like to ask you a few rapid fire questions, if I may. What is the one advice you'll give to your younger self after having gone through your life's journey?
Decide what you want and work towards getting it. Because this is a quote that says, when you know what you want and you want it bad enough, you will find a way to get it. So the sooner you decide, what is the destination you want your life to take, and then you put the hard work and the effort into pushing your life in that destination, then the results will come.
So one quote that left a lasting impression on you?
I'll sort of cheat a little bit and give you two. The first is from Mahatma Gandhi, which says, strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from indomitable will. And the second is from a person called Vivian Green, which says, life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but learning to dance in the rain.
Fantastic. So one word for people who were wanting to actually get into AI or embrace AI more from a people perspective, what would you tell them?
And use it and say it in one word, so say a sentence there. My recommendation for people like that would be start with what you have. And as you work on it, things will become better as you go along. So therefore, you will have a certain set of data, you'll have a certain set of knowledge, you'll have a certain set of resources with you. Start with whatever you have and keep improving upon it as you go along, if you're not already started on your AI journey.
Fantastic. Great. I think it's been a great discussion, Rostow. I'm sure whoever is listening to the podcast would benefit greatly from, well-rounded view, across all the very lasting words that you have uttered during this 1 hour or half an hour past. So very nice to have met you today, and thank you so much for joining us, and all the very best to make Alpha Hive into the next unicorn. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalpana. And as a lifelong Star Wars fan, may the force be with you.
and also with you. Thanks. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rostow. Thank you.